this episode, I am going to be talking to Mark Feehily. He's a band member of one of the most successful bands in the world. He's also a solo artist and he is a recent dad. I have seen Mark in concert and now I'm in a one-on-one mosh pit front row for our episode. Hope you enjoy. Mark, listen, thank you so much for coming to record our Christmas duets album. I'm so thrilled.
What song are we starting with?
I don't know. I think we're just going to improv it, like freestyle, just go with the emotion of it.
Well, most of those Christmas albums are recorded in the summertime, so
it's perfect.
Let's get started if we want to out for Christmas.
That's brilliant. Well, that's why we're here. I mean, we're also just going to have a chat about life and being a parent, but do you know what? We'll leave that to the end.
Okay.
And I'll get together my list of stuff we're going to sing, and I'll probably take the lead, and you can just do kind of like humming in the background, whatever.
Sounds good to me. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. So, Mark, I worked with, when I say I worked with, I was in fourth year in school with your cousin when we did our school musical. And I kind of knew your family had talent then because myself and your cousin Paul both had like non-singing parts.
Excellent.
And I think we did really well at that. I think I had the only speaking, non-singing part.
Okay.
Which won't bode well for our duets album.
Well, you know, there's always rap.
Exactly. I'll do the talky bit. But I had a bit of an emotional week this week because I had a really like nostalgic retrospective look on I think the 90s, and I don't know if you watched the Friends reunion. Did you watch it?
I haven't seen it yet. I didn't really know that it existed until it was already out on TV. Like,
yeah.
It was just like when the day after it was on, my friends were like, "Oh my God, did you see the Friends thing?" I was like, "What?"
Yes, the guys never told me.
Yeah,
Matt LeBlanc never. Jen Ann basically never said a word to me. Because it was talk about them coming back and having this reunion, and everyone thought it was going to be like an acting episode, and it was just a hangout, and I was not prepared for my levels of emotion, but in a lovely way. Like, it was joyous. I was laughing and crying, and it was just such a lovely it just catapulted me back, I think, into a time in my life where I was discovering different things, and actually then discovering different, I guess, popular culture stuff.
Yeah.
And it was just so lovely, and it was so lovely that they were emotional about it. I mean, they had every more right to be more emotional about it than I did, because it was their show. Do you know what I mean? But I loved it. And then, because I knew we would be chatting, I was listening to loads of Westlife, and I realised that so much of my like developmental youth was kind of Westlife songs and weeping about some bloke who had no interest in me. So it's been an emotional roller coaster the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, like when we kind of split up back in 2012 or so, and obviously at that point we sort of gravitated away from the Westlife world just to get our heads into a kind of neutral space and just kind of see what life was like without it, because it's such a big machine. But like, a few years later, slowly you might be like, I don't know, you might be on YouTube one night or whatever, just a bit bored, and you might stick in a little concert from, back in the day and get a bit like nostalgic. But then slowly and surely over the kind of next 6 or 7 years before we got back together, you'd start doing a little bit more and a little bit more, and one night I watched like every documentary back to back that we've ever made, and it was almost like seeing it was almost like a little Netflix series, because the first documentary was when we were like 18, then there was one when we were like 21, 25, 30. And I almost like forgot about everything, right? I just kind of put it to the back of my mind, and then all of a sudden I was just watching it going, oh my God, like what we had was insane, and is almost like bigger than any of us as individuals. It's almost like the songs that we recorded, back in the day especially, they really were, we were very lucky to get sent all these amazing songs by all these amazing songwriters and stuff. And I don't know, sometimes when you think back to it, it's almost like you're an out-of-body experience. You're kind of watching back like it was somebody else. You know what I mean?
And I think, when you're at a different stage in your life, I think you have a different level of appreciation for what was. I'm sure it was emotional watching the concerts. I don't think there's anything more emotional than a concert. I cry at every concert, even if it was like heavy metal. I'd be weeping in the back row. And I think, because songs, and it just brings out an emotion, and that's why we all love them, and that's why we, have an emotional connection to them. Even like with two things that will make me cry. Well, there is actually a list of 100 things that will make me cry. But music, concert stuff, And then as well, match stuff. I like that when you look back on stuff. I think whenever I've been at something where it's been a retrospective of Brian's career, match stuff. Even at the time, I'm not crying in the middle of a game.
Absolutely.
But it's so, and the crowd. I think it's the crowd as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that shared experience.
Yeah, for me, Irish football, I still live in a bubble where it's Italia '90.
Oh yeah, that was a great year.
I kind of grew up outside the Sligo town, not too far into the countryside, but I grew up half kind of my granny's farm and sort of and so going into Sligo to the pub to watch all the Irish matches in Italia '90, and all the kids were sitting on the floor on the small little dance floor, this big massive TV, and they were handing around cocktail sausages and chicken nuggets and the potatoes and the
Crisps.
Club Orange, and then the absolute mania that kind of unfolded when Ireland started to actually get somewhere in the competition as well.
We took it on as it was a huge thing for us.
Everybody in Ireland was on the pitch. Do you know what I mean? It was, but I just remember the feeling of that. It was probably my first encounter with that national
collective pride.
We're all because we are smaller than a lot of other countries, and I think that for that reason it's small enough that we all feel like one big family.
Absolutely. And I think because it's small, it's often because we don't have as many people to pick from for things, we often feel like we're the underdog, and then when we do well, it just, that collective sense of pride is so magical. And I feel it with Italian '90, with the Eurovision, all those things where we're Eurovision.
I nearly broke my ankle jumping off the mantelpiece in my house when Johnny Logan won with oh my God, what's wrong with me?
Oh, we know.
Yes.
Sure, he had a few wins. He had a few.
No, he did. It was
I'm
holding
glad
out.
you've got no memory like
By
me.
the end of it, I was freaking out because obviously it was if I remember correctly, it was kind of neck and neck. The scores were coming out or whatever, and when he won, I jumped off the mat. I was on the mantelpiece by the end of it, screaming at the telly, and I jumped off when he won.
I think my favourite moment was, I can't remember exactly the words he said, where he was like, it was just like the turn to camera, it was like, "I love you, Ireland." And then I think it went to Pat Kenny. I think he was like, we love you, Johnny Logan. Anyway, for me, for Westlife was, in my teen years and going into my 20s, that was as well. It was like a sense of catharsis. It's like, put on Westlife, sit there and just go, because I did that with Johnny Logan as well. So all the greats.
No, I mean, it was great. And for us, I think we started off, kind of in line with Celtic Tiger, and sort of Ireland was going through this burst of growth, and we were just kind of lucky enough to be one of the various musical kind of backing tracks to all that kind of time. And I think about, we'd done a deal with the mobile phone company, and we I was like, I've got a free mobile phone, the size of my car, but all this kind of stuff that was happening, we were getting excited about stuff like that, whereas now, if you got a free phone, obviously you'd like it, but at the same time it's
so
kind of
big.
nothing really, and just all these things that were happening, we weren't used to all that kind of stuff. There was no champagne or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? But we're mad at the champagne now. And free mobiles. Champagne, free mobiles.
Give me all your bubbles and free mobiles. So Mark, things have changed obviously in your life, and in such a great way. You've got a little daughter, Layla, and is this going to be your second Father's Day? How old is she?
Okay, so she's 20 months. I'm pretty sure. I'm kind of still on the months thing,
Yeah, it's great.
How much? She's like 2 and 3 and 4. It's just much easier.
I think you get more sympathy when you're still in the months, though.
Yeah.
I think when they start to become like the years, people go, it's grand.
I think I say months because it's when you're speaking, especially to other parents, it's all about the developmental stages and sort of 20 months. She's probably kind of starting to talk now. You know what I mean? And it's actually funny, how similar a lot of kids are. I mean, they all start walking and talking and stuff at different ages, but people are pretty close on the money when they're like, when my kid was 20 months, she was just starting to talk, don't worry, but she's not talking too much, all this kind of stuff. So she's 20 months now, and everything's changed, but to be honest with you, I kind of feel pretty lucky, and we feel lucky as parents, because, people sort of come into parenthood in many different ways or whatever, and for us, especially with the fact that, we've done it through surrogacy, and I'd be crazy into the research and everything before we even began, to actually make phone calls and inquiries. I've done so much research.
How long does that take? How long were you invested in that?
I worked out from the point, from the day that Layla was born, if you go back to the first time I Googled surrogacy, for same-sex parents and all that kind of stuff, it was about 3.5 years,
Okay.
So it wasn't something that I didn't just go down to the pub one night and be like the next day, I think
we're doing it.
So it was kind of, we definitely decided to do it, and we were ready for it, and I don't think anybody would go through that lengthy process unless they were very much ready for it. Now, not saying that I knew what was to come. If you know what I mean.
You're never really. I mean, you're prepared, and then you're never really prepared in so many ways. Yeah, I think it's that obviously. Yeah, and you had a weight there, and I'd say even just the picture of you and your fiance was saying the happiest dads in the world. Again, more tears from me, but just the joy, especially as well, that you had that weight of a few years, and then her finally being here. There must have been so incredibly special.
It was. I mean. Like, I don't know, I just wouldn't change anything about it at all. Like, I almost felt like the whole process, that 3.5 years of the research and then the actually kind of going, and finding a surrogate and just getting into all that kind of stuff, it was almost like setting out on a journey to kind of not find my child. But you know what I mean? Yeah. It was like, at the end of the journey, like, it was all worthwhile because I knew that she was going to be at the end of it, or a baby was going to be at the end of it. And so it was like a big quest or something, do you know what I mean? Like, and so every time I was like, oh my God, I don't understand any of this medical information I'm being told right now. And eventually, it's like a mountain of information, basically. And there's all the kind of legalities, there's the medical side of it, there's so much. But
and does that take up a huge part of your brain and your time when you're in it, I'm sure, and you're so emotionally invested?
And for me, I don't know, some people would kind of just be like, oh, whatever, like, hand me the baby.
No.
But for me, I'm so particular about that. Like, I mean, even if I'm not comparing it to refurbishing a house, but like, I'm so particular about everything. Like, oh my God, there's 10 different surrogacy agencies. How am I going to ever pick the right one? And there's like a mountain of information, and it's really daunting. But then there came a turning point where I was like, I think I actually can get my head around this now and I understand it. And I felt like I was in a position to make the decisions in an informed way. And
well, that's great, because when you look at something and you're looking from the outside, and you're going, that all, as you said, it's data and it's information, and how do we find our way to to our little person?
And there's the IVF side of it as well, and I've spoken to people about both the IVF side of it and the surrogacy side, and there's just so much. Even just one of those alone, there's so much to understand and comprehend. And as I say, finally we kind of got our heads around it and kind of felt like we understood it.
Yeah.
And then we were like, okay, now let's kind of press the button, and because I didn't want to make any decisions before I knew what I was doing. And so so it was a big journey, but none of it was. I mean, the kind of the end goal was just this kind of happiness and this little lady or this little person. Obviously, before we knew it was going to be a girl, and. So it was like a mission to.
So you didn't know what you didn't know what you were having.
Well, no, we did by the end of it.
By the end of it, when they're born.
We didn't have to actually, because you can sort of say no, don't tell me or whatever.
Okay.
But, when it came to embryo selection, all that kind of stuff, but we kind of we knew. So,
okay.
So.
When everyone said to me, "Are you going to find out?" I was like, "Oh, definitely. When they're born, I don't think I won't be able to ask what they are. What is it?" Do you feel like you've more empathy having gone through that for other people who are in the beginning of a similar journey?
Totally. And like what I found as well, first of all, is like I'm definitely not an expert, like, because everybody's journey and everybody's reason for arriving at, say, an IVF clinic or a surrogacy agency or whatever is different, so I definitely don't sort of assume that everybody that goes through any of those journeys is just like me, and I can tell you exactly what it's all about, because you have to find your own individual sort of path within it. But there is certain elements that, like, a couple of people contacted me through family and friends, and also just people that I know, and anytime I can sort of offer even a tiny bit of insight, because I was that person standing with this mountain of information going, oh my God, what the hell, I don't understand any of this. And so it is nice, like, I found that from speaking to other people that had been through it previous to me.
I think so many of these things are exposing the journeys that people have to go to, the difficulties. I know we're looking at legislative reform here as well to make it easier on couples who are on that journey. And
I mean, like, at the moment in Ireland, the legislation is designed around, the sort of more traditional heterosexual man and a woman have a baby. And at the moment, families who have children through surrogacy are having to squeeze themselves into the rules and the laws that have been made up for a completely different situation, So put it this way, I would love in the future to not have to go to the other side of the world to do what we've done, number one.
Yeah.
And number two, when we come back in here, I'd love the state to recognise the difference between, like, I always say, like, I'm all about equality, even like as a gay man, I want to be equal, but I'm not the same, you know what I mean? Like
sure.
Everybody's different.
Equal opportunity, but you understand your situation is different.
We love the beauty of uniqueness and individuality, but it's more equality, and so, and it's not even in this situation, and not to get into too much, but, because, I don't want to sort of make decisions and speak out of turn for Layla when she's older, when she's like 20 and she's like, what the hell did you say that?
No, of course, I know.
It's basically, it's Layla's equal rights. That's what I'm interested in. And kids that are born through surrogacy at the moment, when they come back to Ireland, are having to be sort of fitted into laws that were made up for a different set of people, if you know what I mean. And I really think it's important that Ireland quite quickly, seeing as the amount of people that are having children through surrogacy, whether it be same-sex parents or not, the fact is the children are here, they're born, and they deserve to be recognised. I mean, it's not an emergency, because all the kids are loved and in loving families and everything, but they deserve to be
recognised
taken care of legally,
absolutely.
And it's not there at all, and it just needs to speed up, because these children are here now.
It needs to be addressed, and I know there's a movement to equality for children, and I think so many people don't know. When you haven't been on the journey, you don't know, and I think discussing it is great, because it's like, well, what do we have, and what do we look at to protect our kids?
Well, people seem to have all these opinions and stuff, and those opinions probably come from a bygone era.
Sure.
And all of a sudden they just see a picture of two guys and their lovely little child, and they're like, jeez, that's lovely.
I know.
And so sometimes it's just about visibility, and it's about, did you see the wee daughter? She's so cute, And all of a sudden it's like, it's not this kind of, it's not something that's written down on a piece of paper. It's a real family with a real child, and the child is happy, and so that visibility is important. And even though it kind of goes against my grain a bit to sort of speak publicly on certain issues, I think that as a father, I also feel a duty to do what I can to create sort of a better world for my daughter to grow up in,
Yeah, and look, I think you do it really well, and I think, all you can do is own your own truth and share what you feel you want to, and thank you for, giving us that insight. Did you always want to be a dad? Like, was that kind of in your head, or was there a point where you're going, will I be?
I always had like a natural instinct. Like, I remember going way back to even teenage years and sort of early 20s, kind of go, well, if I had a kid now, I wouldn't do that, and I wouldn't do this, or I'd do this, or Jesus, there wouldn't be a hope I'd let my child do that if I was, but then, that would just be a thought that will quickly be battered away, because I would never think, well, I could have a child. Like, I literally never thought of it as a possibility. And once again, through other people, there was a couple, I don't know their names or anything, but they were quite well known back in the early 2000s probably. It was a couple in the UK there was a little documentary about them, and they'd done surrogacy, and I remember going, oh my god, those kids are biologically theirs, and all this kind of stuff, and I was like, whoa. And then that was probably, like, I remember sitting watching it one night in bed on the TV, and that was probably the very first time I realised that I could actually be a father, but that was a long time ago, and I didn't ever think I would actually go ahead and do it, because it was so far away from me and so removed from my sort of reality and my sort of, I didn't know anybody else that done it, whereas now I know so many people that have done it, whether it's through adoption or surrogacy. I know so many same-sex parents. I mean, there's loads around where I live in Ireland, It's
great to have that support group as well, and other people to share your experiences and the ups and downs of that.
And I think things like social media and sort of all that can be amazing, and it can be not amazing, but one of the good things about it is that you kind of, all of a sudden you're like, oh my god, there's a group on Facebook about same-sex parents in Dublin, and all this kind of stuff, and then you're like, oh my god, there's loads of people, and
but I think it's great, and I think you're right with that, because like, it can always be like, poo-poo social media, but I think that some of the great stuff is a community, and a community of shared voices, and because especially in the last year and a half, when we can't get out and meet people, to be able to kind of reach out and help someone or have that chat and go, this is my experience and this is where we are too. I think that's such a great side of it.
Just, I mean, it dismantles all your fear and apprehensions, and the loneliness of thinking, oh my god, am I the only person out? Like, how do I even start this? These groups, you're like, there's so many other people that have done this before and are doing it right now, and then the forums sort of create a space for people to talk and go, and like, how did you find your attorney in America? And how did you find your, there's like 50 surrogacy agencies, but how did you know which one was the best one to kind of go? There's so much, and any kind of a group that you can go and sort of just share information about something so important, and you're just not on your own anymore. And those situations, that works for across the board. I remember my grandmother years ago was in the ICA, which is like the Irish Country Women's Association.
Oh, I know it well.
Yeah. Oh, you know, okay.
It was like baking, and I actually did a film years and years ago that I was in one of those, and I was and my mum was like, I've never seen, this is what I always wanted you to be domesticated. I was like, well, I'm only acting, and I was like baking and all that kind of stuff.
Well, that's literally all my granny used to do. She actually won an All-Ireland baking competition.
Amazing.
In the ICA, but and she had to come up to Dublin and get her prize, and it was this massive thing, whatever. And I was so proud of her. Oh my god!
How old were you?
Well, I don't know. I'd say it was about 7 or 8. I used to sit and watch her. The attention to detail was crazy, but or astonishing. But you know, she used to make cake after cake after cake. She's like, right, that one's not good enough. That one's not good enough, and she'd keep going and going. And I remember, I learned something from that because her attention. She was very sort of artistic, and her attention to detail. I was like, okay, so that's how far you have to go to
get
really
something
get
really
something good, you know. And that kind of taught me that. But anyways, the point I was making was, you know, that was a space where my granny could go, and you know, she was a kind of a housewife farm. She looked after 17 grandchildren and cooked all the food for all the farmers. You know what I mean?
Legend.
She was amazing, but she used to have a chance to go off and talk about sort of stuff and find common ground in this group, you know. And I suppose that was obviously not social media, but I think it's a really good thing to get out of your house and to go and speak to people that you can sort of have a similar interest with and stuff, you know.
Absolutely.
And that goes back. That's way before social media. But
well, people need company, and we've built our worlds around community, and like that's changed in the last however many years because life has changed.
Yeah.
So we still need an outlet of shared experience, and just to know that you're not alone in stuff. And I think that's, you know, that is such an important thing in life. Be it what your granny had, and like, you know, a community that you're able to share your experiences and go, how do I feel about this, and get comfort from other people. What were you like as a kid? I want to know what you were like. Was that where it started, where you were like, I know what it takes to do what you do at a certain at a certain level?
Well, I've never really been majorly competitive, but like when I was a kid, I basically went from a triangle of my school to my nana's house and then my own house, obviously. And then I went back to school, and then I went back to Nana's and back to my own house in the evening, you know. And obviously I went outside the triangle occasionally, but that was basically, yeah, so I lived just outside Sligo town. It's a country area. And I mean, honestly, it was very picturesque kind of. Nana was like baking cakes in the kitchen, and then I'd be running up to bring up like a big biscuit tin full of biscuits and tea to my granddad when he was making hay. Like, I mean, and I'm not making this up. It sounds
That's
like
gorgeous.
It sounds like something, but it was really, really idealistic. And
so you had you were happy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Happy
you know,
kid.
And so yeah, like literally, I was running. I'd be skipping down the road playing my tin whistle on my way home from school. Like, you know, like
I love it. I think it's so, because that's what you want for your kids. Those memories that, you know, that's little moments, big memories. And I think that's what you want for your kids. And like, we sometimes, you know, dress up the big stuff, and of course you do, and sometimes it is the little things like skipping down the road with the tin whistle and going to visit your granny and getting the biscuits to your granddad, and those just the sense of safety, I think, and happiness. That's just what you want to give your kids.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that I really, I mean, valued from my own childhood. Was I constantly knew that I was loved and surrounded by so many aunties and uncles and cousins, and just running around and having that, once again, that sense of community or that sense of family. Like, you know, you're part of a group and we're strong and we love each other, and
you're safe.
It gives you a sense of power and confidence, you know.
Yeah.
And it's strange because, you know, then another thing that I've learned from that experience is that I also want to not, you know, like there's a balance between showing children that the world is this amazing, perfect place, but also just reality. Letting them know that there is also reality, and that everything isn't always just handed to you on a plate, and everything isn't peachy every day or whatever. That sometimes, you know, you wake up and you don't always hear what you want to hear, and then you know. So I mean, that's obviously later down the road. I'm not going to start, you know.
That's not something. The pandemic.
Yeah.
But I think
when you're 18, you have to get a job. Okay, I don't care if you're 2. You need to know this.
You need to know this. It's going to be hard, and you're going to get fired, and you're going to have your heart broken, and you'll be listening to my songs while you're doing it.
But you know, that's for later in life. But you know, it's
but I think it starts early. Like, because my older 2 are a little bit older, and we've definitely come up with, you know, life stuff and death and loss, and I am absolutely no expert, but I, you know, and the things you try and take on board, and they're your own kids as well, and everyone says just, you know, kids need honesty, and it's kind of like going, but okay, they do, but it's, I guess, in how you deliver it and go, but this is what happened, but you're still safe and it will be okay, and people are sad, but we will be okay. I think it's, and that's, I struggle with that a lot, and it's like, and also my kids are at a stage now where they're eavesdropping all the time. I don't even know what they know. I don't even know what they've heard, but there was definitely a point last year when the news came on, I'd be like, la, 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 la.
Yeah.
Mostly, maybe even for me as well, primarily because I was like, I don't want to listen to that.
Yeah, well, I think what you said is very relevant about the fact that at the end of it all, things will still be okay. So basically that you will sort of trip up every now and again, and sort of you will get news that is not great, or something, it's not always rosy,
no.
but everything will work out in the end, and everything will be okay. And that's something that I think I've only learned it because, I'm 41 now, and like I've just learned it through
life experience.
Because there's points where I really wanted everything to be perfect and it wasn't, and then I'm
it's
like,
I'm
so pissed off that things aren't perfect, and then I'm like, hang on a minute, I should stop expecting everything to be perfect, and then I won't be so disappointed, and there won't be these like highs and lows. And so you just kind of, that's kind of more, it's this kind of, it's an arc, it starts off brilliant day, oh god, some bad news, well, but by the time I went to sleep I was happy again. It's like,
and to own them. And I was even saying to my little fella the other day, because my dad hasn't been very well, and I was like, if you see me sad about it, like, of course I'm going to be sad because he's my dad, but I will be okay, and I need to be sad because I love him. And it's those kind of things as well, so they're not going to worry. But I think sometimes you want to obviously protect them, but then I always think on the other side of it, then if they, would they be afraid to express emotion if they don't see it?
There's definitely sort of a time, I suppose, where children were, I mean, they weren't specifically taught it, but they observed people hiding their emotions and pushing them down and not expressing them, and that's more dangerous than being kind of really dramatic and constantly expressing your emotions too much. I mean, look, it's more dangerous to brush things under the surface, because that will create like a ticking time bomb, and so.
Well, I often feel that, and it's one of my pet peeves, because sometimes I use it in a moment where I feel like it's not justified for me to feel, to be over emotional or waste too much time thinking of something. But the thing of like, just get on with it. I often feel as well, it's like that just like whitewashes any like ability or affording anybody to be able to say, I'm really worried, or I'm really sad, or instead of going, you'll be grand. I think your overview is that, and just go, once I kind of work out through those, it will be okay, and we'll, tomorrow will be a better day, and that kind of stuff. But to allow people emote, I think, is really important.
Yeah, absolutely, totally agree with that.
Because I'm sniffling and
but
crying.
I always say to my friends, like, some of my friends, like when they're really hungover, they kind of, it's like they reject and can't accept the hangover. You know what I mean? But I'm like, the hangover is part of the fun, and unfortunately, it's not a nice part of the fun. But you don't get to have all that, like that social laugh and everything without it. And
it comes as a surprise every time, though, doesn't it? Like everyone, it's just like, oh my god, I feel horrendous. You probably haven't had much hangovers with your kids.
Certainly not the type of hangovers, and not as many hangovers. Yeah, but no, I mean,
horrendous.
The thing is, like a lot of people turned around when the news came out that we were going to be dads and everything, and parents were like, oh, that's it now, you can say goodbye. I just don't want, first of all, I didn't want my child to be something that stops me from, I want my child to represent happiness, and that's what I focus on. I know that there's all kind of ends of the spectrum on it, because having a baby isn't easy either, but I was looking forward to having a baby, and I embraced it, and embracing all of the good side of it, and looking on the bright side of everything.
Well, that's a lovely way to be. It's tapping into still who you are, because when people say as well, like, it's just not worth it if you've a night out, it's like, it is always worth it. Because even though I will like struggle, and I don't do well with hangover, I would be like crawling on the ground with them, it kind of recharges my batteries in a way that I kind of go, I need, and the banter with my mates, and I think that's been a weird shift in the last year and a half, because we haven't had any of that. I don't think there's ever a really right balance, and it's each to their own, but I just know that that having the outlet to enjoy your life as well, with all parts of it, and to try and keep friendships going, and dancing on the dance floor. God, I would love to do that.
Yeah, like, I mean, people are like, oh no, you're never going to be in a nightclub again for the rest of your life.
What?
And I'm like,
no,
I don't know. It's like I lived in London for a while, and people have got a pretty good balance of parenthood, work. They still go to the pub or a gig, or a match or whatever, or they might go for Sunday lunch and have a few beers, and like it's really not this kind of sentence, you know what I mean? It's not like,
and it's whatever you want it to be. And I think there's loads of people who happily kind of go, I'm ready to be at home now, and I don't want to go out. I don't think I'll ever be that, or I don't think I'd ever, at the excitement even of, I went back to film something a couple of weeks ago, and I was so giddy. And like, actually, you know, when I first my first kid, I was knotted with the guilt, and I was like, oh. And I remember somebody saying to me, don't apologise to your kid for going to work, because then they associate it with a negative thing.
Yeah.
So then I was trying to do the real, I'm going to have such a great day. But like leaving going, oh God, what am I doing with my life?
What I found is that the transition from not being a parent into being a parent is like, it's like the first time you go and have a night out and you're hungover, you're like, oh my God, I feel so bad now. What kind of dad am I and stuff. And then like, over time, it's not just obviously going out, it could be anything. It could be like, we went away to China for 2 weeks at one point there, not too long after Layla was born, and like by the end of it I was like, just get me home right now, like what the hell am I doing? Like, is this really all worth it? You know what I mean?
Listen, I've been there, absolutely.
Over time, it's just trial and error, and you have to find your own sort of boundaries. And sometimes I will go, I'm sorry, but I'm not doing that because because I'm doing X, Y, or Z, or I'm looking after the baby that day. And sometimes there's a guilt on that other end of saying no, because
I think it gets easier though. I think it gets easier. I've definitely, again, expending less energy going, because I got to a point where it's like, I can't pretend I have all the energy in the world, because I go all day, and then the fallout is I get home and I can't speak. So I know that if it's going to be a busy period, that it's okay then to say no to all the other things. And I kind of have learned my kind of balance, and it's never easy, probably like you, when you've got no routine. I never know what's coming or what you're going to say yes to, and I just know that it's okay then to say no, and I've gotten a bit better at saying no, because you know that it's just impossible. Maybe it's just I'm getting old. I don't have the energy for it anymore.
No, absolutely. And I just think for me, I'm like, do you know what, I'm just not going to deal with that. Like, I mean, I just kind of have learned to try and focus on positive things, positive situations.
There's lots to love at Aldi, like being the most awarded supermarket at the National Parenting Product Awards with 22 awards, including golds for Mamiya Nappy Sacks 99 cent, the Mamiya Organic Baby Food range from 69 cent, Mamiya Air System Nappies from 2.79, and Mamiya Newborn Nappies 24-pack just 1.39. Not yet using the Mamiya range? Definitely time for a change. Aldi, every day amazing.
You went into lockdown with a little, like, she was only a couple of months old.
Yeah, so so lockdown happened, and I'm not being funny, but and I really didn't say it out loud a lot at the time, but I was like, I'm supposed to be like flying to the UK for tour rehearsals, and we're doing a world tour and all this stuff. Now, I'm not in any way happy that the tour got postponed or cancelled, some of the gigs, but I found myself lying on a mat in Sligo with like little baby bum on the TV, and loads of parents will know that magic. But the music playing in the background, and it was in the middle of a weekday, like 10:30 in the morning, and I just had a coffee, and Layla was there, and she was crawling around, and I was just like, this isn't like, for me right now, I could be in another country and I might be getting this moment, I might have lost this moment in this week and the next week. And so I just, once again, I have a habit, or a kind of a bit of a motto of just thinking about the positive things. I was thinking there's a lot of people out there that are losing jobs, there's business closing down. I'm lying on the floor playing with my daughter, listening to kids' nursery rhymes, and I'm happy out. Like, I'm happy out because nothing bad has happened to me through COVID, and I'm just grateful that I'm not in a position that some other people are, that
for sure.
Their world has kind of crumbled around them,
It was absolutely the silver lining, and I had the same. I was like, I had no FOMO for the first time in my entire life. And I don't even FOMO about going out nightclubbing. I really don't actually go out that much. But I meant like that you probably have a different work schedule. You know that you're doing like a concert, whereas, as an actor, you're kind of constantly auditioning for stuff. So you're kind of constantly on this treadmill of stuff. And that suddenly stopped. I didn't even realise how much I needed to turn that off and a reset as I did. So the fact that I knew I wasn't missing out on something, and you're not constantly having things in the air and going, oh, I hope that lands, was actually the real silver lining once you got over the initial absolute terror. I don't know if you felt it in the beginning few weeks where it was like, oh gosh.
My old housemate was an actor, and I seen exactly that, and seeing how that whole world is just constantly, you're just going to like throwing stones at a wall, and some of them stick and some of them don't, but all of a sudden you can't go here, you can't go there, the productions are all being shut down, so nothing's being made. But like, I think for me, when I was sort of late teens, early 20s, like every day off I took, I literally went home, put a tracksuit on, and got the PlayStation out, and done that whole like, right, thank God I'm not, the less I do the better, it's probably like quite a teenagery sort of approach to things. And there was just a turning point in my life. I don't know what I don't know when it was, definitely mid to late 20s, where I actually turned around and I was like getting up as early as I could, having a cup of coffee, or getting into the day and trying to do something with my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do something with my spare time. A day off doesn't mean nice one, I can just do nothing. Actually make the most of your day off.
Could you imagine having that much time on your hands now? I feel like when you become a parent, you're on a different time zone. Like I could never have imagined my day starting at 6 a.m.
But to me, I would have started getting itchy feet if I was at home for too long. Say if we had a couple of months away from the band. Whereas now I'm like, this is enough. Like I wake up in the morning, I'm a dad, and then I go to bed at night. Do you know what I mean? That's actually enough in my day.
Yes.
Whereas before Layla came, I kind of felt this guilt and this need to fill my day, and I'm wasting my life, and I'm not doing enough, and I could be doing all this extra stuff. And even though I'm doing the band and that's going great, I could be doing stuff as an individual and putting pressure on myself in that way. And one thing that I was kind of pretty happy about was that lockdown just took away my ability to run out the door with a cup of coffee in my hand in the morning and try and do stuff,
Oh my God, absolutely. Because we had a little baby a couple of months ago, and the difference from him to my first, where I was so overtired, so overwhelmed, and I would probably have met 5 people in a day. I'd be like, yeah, I'll go there. And the difference of just being able to actually not having a choice to do anything. And I think at the beginning it was weird, because remember at the beginning of lockdown where everyone was on a self-improvement bus? And then I was going, do you know what, I've come to a nice middle ground where if I achieve in a day that everybody is safe and well and fed and watered, and I've laughed a couple of times in the day, I've spoken to my family on the phone, then that's enough. And I think it's been a really nice leveler in a way as well. And I wonder, do you think people will go back to that level of busy?
I think that everyone probably likes to think, including me, that I've learned a lot, and I think that a lot of it will stick with me. But there's also probably going to be like this bursting at the seams thing where everyone just can't wait to get back to the way things used to be. So hopefully we'll all retain or remember a bit of what we've learned, but also
I think we will a bit. I think we'll naturally forget some of it, but I think the fact that it went on so long, I think if it was that first lockdown, I think we would never have even remembered it. But I think that it was the hard yards. I think that's I think something alters in that, and hopefully we will be nicer to each other as well. I hope we will.
Yeah, people have gone through a deeper change.
Yeah,
it's not just kind of a quick fix. I notice people around me. I notice in myself. There's stuff like where, I don't know, even like the approach to work. Like there's always, especially like in the entertainment industry, it's basically like the harder you work, the more dedicated you are, the more professional you are. Whereas it's actually not. That's not the case. Sometimes, if you're a bit more choosy about what you do, and if you go into work enjoying what you do, then you'll do better work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You'll do better performances or whatever. And for me, I don't know. There's been a lot of no, I'm just not going to do that.
Yeah. I would
have been guilty, or I would have felt like I can't turn that down. I can't. Whereas now I'm just like, you know what? No, I'm just not going to do it. I want to stay at home with my family. And
do you think that's age as well as maybe becoming a parent, in that you just go, I know what I want to give my time to, and because I always thought that I needed this perception of being busy and having all these things on, but I'm like, I need to do the stuff that I want to do, and have the time for family, and do the stuff well, and enjoy that, and then let it be it, instead of going, but I also then must do this and must do this.
The biggest change I feel like I've gone through recently is that I always used to be away from my family,
Yeah.
Talking about my mother, my father, my 2 brothers, and extended family. But now my family are with me every day when I wake up, because my family are my other half and my daughter.
That's
of
gorgeous.
Course, my other family.
I know your extended family, but that's your that's your crew.
My family are here with me every day.
Yeah.
And I've gone back to when I was young, in the sense that my family, I wake up every day, my family are right there with me, and when I go to bed at night, and that's kind of what I have again, and that brings me so much content, because I used to love being in the band, but it took me a long time to get used to being away from my family.
Yeah.
I was really close to all my family and all my cousins, and I'm not saying I'm not anymore, but
life is different, and it's busy in a different way. Will you travel together, do you think, for when things do open up, or sometimes it's just not possible as well?
I always kind of think there's no blueprint for parenting and good parenting, and Layla just happens to have a dad that's in a band that does gigs all around the place, and so I just think that's going to hopefully be something that in a measured way she can sort of adapt to. Obviously when it comes to school and stuff,
But my dad used to travel a lot for work, and like he was only mentioning to me the other day, he was like, I was away a lot. I was like, I don't remember that. Like, you know,
it's
and
not
I think
what you hold on to.
No, and like we can be so hard on ourselves, and like going, I was gone for like 3 days, whatever. I listen, you know, no situation is perfect, and every situation is different, and it's making the most of it. And I don't know, just trying not to give ourselves, you know, like more of a hard time than we need to, because if they're happy and they're loved, and you know, I think it was the same myself and my husband. Like, it was either like busy, but then the other flip side is our downtime. We'd be there nearly too much. They're like, get out of my face.
I think for me, just observational wise, like if you work, say, and you're only kind of seeing your kid a couple of hours a day in the weekdays, and then you get weekend time with them, it's as long as the time is of good quality.
Absolutely.
I'd much rather have a parent that was constantly positive around me than my parents be with me 7 days a week and sort of instill negative sort of beliefs and just be negative around me, or just not be great.
And also, what a lovely thing for your kid to see when you know, and well, I know she's only still really young, you enjoying what you're so good at, and I think that's really special, and I think that she will only be proud. Like, I can't even imagine being at a concert and watching your dad sing. Do you sing? Does she sing? Is she singing? Is she talking?
Yeah. The mad thing is she actually does sing, and I mean, I thought all kids done that, and I think a lot of them do. But
I don't know. Yours
I was
probably
together
might sing
with my friends a few days ago, and all their kids were around, and Layla was singing along to something on the laptop or whatever, Twinkle Twinkle or whatever, and they're like, oh my god, she just like sung the notes, and I was like, what, does everyone
She's
do
a
that?
prodigy.
She was like, twinkle twinkle little star.
Get her on our Christmas album. I want her.
But no, she does seem to like music. She found a piano in her auntie's house the other day, and she was bashing it out for about 2 hours.
That's not that most 20-month-year-olds. Is that what you say? I always think about nursery rhymes. You mentioned them earlier. Do you ever catch yourself and go? Like I was singing the other day. I was like walking around the house going, three blind mice. She cut off their tails with a carving knife. Have you ever heard such a thing in your life? No, I have never. That is horrendous.
Oh,
and then you're just
I'm
like sleep well now. Like these mice running around with their tails chopped off. A lot of them are quite.
Have sweet dreams about a housewife cutting rats up with a knife.
Have you ever heard such a thing in your life? No, thankfully. That is insane. We need a rebranding of nursery rhymes.
Some of it. I mean, I remember the first time. This is years ago now, before Layla was born. But I remember. It was after a night out, and we were actually in Nashville doing some TV show, and we all went back to the hotel for like a nightcap at the end, and we were all in one of our rooms, and it was like so late that like the kids' TV things were coming on for the next morning.
Oh yeah.
And I think it was The Bear in the Big Blue House.
Oh yes.
And I was like, are you kidding me? Kids watch this. Like, it's literally so
terrifying,
mindless. But now I obviously understand. I have a kid. Like, it's kind of like. To the kid, that's like a lovely big fairy blue animal, you know, it's kind of fun. But I was like, this is teaching. What is this teaching kids?
What is it? I often find that when in the early stages when my kids were young and they would have gone to bed, and I think I was so tired, I would have still watched for 20 minutes and go, so there's not even any kids here, and I'm just watching.
Well, there's like one of them. I think it's Little Baby One. One of them kind of goes. There's a nighttime mode, and like it does like bedtime kind of versions where it's all kind of like a bit more relaxed. And
yes.
And sometimes I just leave that on in the background, like as if it's like
someone hold me.
Album.
Yeah, exactly. This is relaxing. So how are you and Kaylin going to celebrate Father's Day? We've only had one Father's Day so far, but do you kind of have to secretly pretend that Layla's bought a present? I know she's still only young, so you both give each other a gift, or what will you do? Like,
you know, especially now since the band, lockdown kind of has taken all that sort of back down many kind of notches, but like. Last year on Father's Day, like there was all the pandemonium around the pandemic, and then there was like the band had just done this tour, and you know I was like, do you know what? I just want to sit on my sofa in my living room
and enjoy my first Father's Day.
Just be playing there with her toys, and that to me is father. I don't need to have big banners and balloons and stuff like that. And I think we've recently just been finding the beauty. And do you know what? Just me, you, and Layla. We'll go and we'll get a bit of lunch somewhere, or we'll go down to the beach, or you know, get a coffee. Like that to me is like simple, walking along the footpath with my kids and my other half. That's all I kind of want, and the simplicity of that. And I suppose that's probably something that has come from lockdown, because before we'd be like, oh, we'll go to Dublin and get a hotel room, and it'll be like Father's Day, and we'll get like cupcakes made, you know what I mean? It's like all that stuff.
The stuff. Although I do have to admit, I was thinking about what to get my husband for Father's Day, and I saw online this hoodie that I'm really tempted to get him, where it says, if you can't be anyone, be Brian O'Driscoll, and if you can't, something like that.
Oh,
and I'm
right,
going, whatever way that's said better, I think I'm going to get it for him.
Do.
I mean, he will never wear it, but it might give me a laugh for 1.5 seconds.
Yeah, get a
this is from the kids. Okay, I've got a really quick fire round. Quick questions. Actually, before, are you going on? Do you know yet? If you're
so at the moment as it stands, at the moment Wembley is on in London, which obviously is one of the biggest gigs of our lives.
Okay.
And it's either the biggest gig of your life's going to happen or it's not. And the closer we get, I'm like, so is it happening? And everyone's asking me, and I'm like, well, we'll do the gig if we can, but we won't do it if there's any risk or danger or anything like that. So, so we just don't know yet. And I think we could find out
close to the time
before it's cancelled, or it could be on. And I'm really sorry because the fans are getting a bit emotional about it as well, because they're like, is it on, is it not on, should I book flights, should I book hotels?
You don't know.
So I suppose the best thing I can say is that we will be on that stage if we're allowed to.
Of course.
We're basically under the control of guidelines and everything,
Yeah.
But I hope it happens. I mean, I think for us, and I can tell by our fans, we all need a bloody day out together.
A group. I was about to say group hug, but we probably shouldn't sell it as that. No one will touch each other.
No hugs. Group elbows.
Yeah, group elbows. Okay, so I've got 3 quick little quizzes. I always, as a celeb dad, I always wanted Steve Martin. Do you know who your favourite celeb dad would be if you could choose one? Obviously, you love your own dad, as do I. But I always thought Steve Martin was so cool and funny.
I like Steve Martin. I would have liked. Oh my God, one of the most famous actors of all time.
What was he in?
Oh, Mark and Mindy. Sorry, I just don't know why I can't think of Robin Williams.
Oh,
something went wrong in my brain there. That's once
glitch.
Again, I find that my memory has gone a bit funny because
I'm so glad you said that.
Sleep deprivation. But anyways,
yes. Robin Williams, great. It would be a great celeb dad. What would you apologise to your parents for now, if there was anything?
Oh, the time that we went to the Isle of Man and I nearly screamed the ferry down to get this stopwatch. And they wanted to buy me something that was useful, but I wanted this red stopwatch, and I mean, I literally turned into the biggest diva and freaked out and screamed the whole place down until they finally gave in to me.
Good, proper order. I like that you got what you wanted. You put your foot down. Yeah. And then the last question: can I have tickets to Wembley?
Yes, absolutely. I'll get you into the diva zone.
Thanks so much. I want to be the Courtney Cox to your Bruce Springsteen.
Okay,
I will come up and dance and I'll have a great time. Mark, thanks so much for coming in to chat. It was such a lovely, lovely chat and really enjoyed it. Bye. Happy Father's Day.